Well, welcome to Access. I love that song. There's some songs where it's just like, man, I'd love to do that song. And then there's some songs where it's like, man, that fits for where we're going. And that does both. So we are starting off our new sermon series, the Lasting Impressions. And that is just such a great song about how we, as people who are seeking God, need a new heart through Him. So let's go ahead and stand, and we're going to continue and sing some songs tonight. We are a sea of voices. We are an ocean of your praise. Gathered unto one name, and the tide that's rising, and we cannot be contained. Gathered unto one name, oh, for 1,000 tongues to say the glories of our Lord God Almighty. Oh, to sing the Savior's praise, the triumph of His grace. You are worthy, yes, you are worthy, God. We have found our anthem at the cross where sin was slain. We're gathered unto one name, where every chain is broken and every sorrow swept away. Gathered unto one name, oh, for 1,000 tongues to say the glories of our Lord God Almighty. Oh, to sing the Savior's praise, the triumph of His grace. You are worthy, yes, you are worthy, God. With all heaven sing, with all heaven sing, and all earth below, and one holy King, with one highest throne. With all heaven sing, and all earth below, one holy King, one highest throne. Oh, for 1,000 tongues to say the glories of our Lord God Almighty. Oh, to sing the Savior's praise, the triumph of His grace. You are worthy, yes, you are worthy, God. Oh, for 1,000 tongues to say the glories of our Lord God Almighty. Oh, to sing the Savior's praise, the triumph of His grace. You are worthy, yes, you are worthy, God. Amen. And all things have passed away. Your love has stayed the same. Your constant grace remains the cornerstone. The things that we thought were dead are breathing in life again. You cause your sun to shine on darkest nights. For all that you've done, we will pour out our love. This will be our anthem song. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. The hopeless have found their hope. The orphans now have a Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. Our hearts adore. We adore you. Savior, I come, I quiet my soul. Remember the redemption till where your blood was spilled for my ransom. Everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. You were as the tempted and tried. The Word became flesh, bore my sin and death. Now you're risen. Everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. To your heart, lead me to your heart, lead me to your heart, lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. You can go ahead and have a seat right now.
Just the first 9 9 months of 2017, there were 139 new cases of HIV.
EPA detected toxic chemicals that may have seeped into local drinking water.
Mass-producing nuclear warheads and ballistic missiles.
Tonight, authorities in Puerto Rico have confirmed more than 80% of the island is again in the dark.
One of them is homelessness. It has gone up 30% within the last year.
More than 13,000 people from around the world have crossed from the U.S. illegally into Canada.
Much needed rain in Southern California has unleashed mudslides in areas that were recently devastated by wildfires. The floods have killed several people.
Hundreds of accidents littered roadways from Georgia to the Carolinas. Semi-trucks flipped over and cars.
Danger in the Tri-State, batches of heroin mixed with meth.
The drinking water was tainted by lead after the city changed its source to save money.
The whole of the U.S. mainland is within our firing range, and the nuclear button is on my desk.
All right, that's pretty intense, isn't it? There's some stuff going on around our world right now, isn't there? I know that we're sitting in a sanctuary nice and cozy. Most of us don't have to deal with most of the stuff we saw in that video. But we're starting a series called Lasting Resolutions, not lasting impressions like Adam said a little bit ago. Lasting resolutions. That's my fault. I've been calling it lasting impressions for weeks now, and he picked up on it. But we're going to start this series, and the whole idea behind this series is that what we want to do in 2018 is not something that's selfish and something that is not going to last, something that's just a selfish endeavor, but that we want to be a part of, somewhat like we talked about if you were here this morning, being a part of God changing the world. And so I want to start real quick by having some fun. So how many of you have never made a resolution in your life? Anyone? Good, okay. Then nobody has excuses here. All right, so this is what I want us to do. I want us to have some fun. I want us to mingle with each other. And so I want you to think about some resolution that you've made. Maybe you can think, it can be any resolution that you've ever made. Maybe your favorite one, maybe one that you actually achieved, maybe one that you didn't achieve. And I want you to share that with someone close. So if you're not sitting really close to someone, find someone and share a resolution that you have made in the past. I'll go ahead and start since I'm not next to anyone. Every year, I make a resolution to get down to my high school weight, which is unattainable. I would not be healthy if I weighed 180 pounds. And so it's changed over the years. It used to be 180, and now I've bumped it up to like, okay, if I could just get under 200, that'd be good, right? And so that's one that is just a constant for me. This year, I think I've shared with some of you that one of my resolutions is to read 24 books, which for me is really hard because I don't like to read. So I have people read to me, and I'm actually almost done. I'm 30 minutes from being done with my second book of the year. So that's good, right? All right, so share some resolution that you made. Maybe it's one like me that is just constant. I want you to take just a little bit of time and share with each other, get some conversation going. All right, we ready to bring it back in? All right, who had one that's really good that they can share with all of us? Don't share somebody else's, only your own. Who had a really good resolution that they want to share with us? Anyone? What's that? To complain less? Okay, that's nice. I'm sure Ricky appreciates that. Who else? Come on. Go to the gym. That's a good one. And when I lived in South Carolina, there were like 2 or 3 years that I paid for a gym membership. What a waste. Yeah. Oh, yours is free. Well, that's nice. My basement gym that I work out in occasionally is also free. Who else? That's all of you? How many of you can remember the resolutions that you made last year? How many of you attained the resolutions that you made last year? Raise your hand. All right, a couple of you. That's good. Well, here's the thing. Actually, this series is kind of based off of one that we saw from North Point Church. But one of the things that, so I've listened through, we're going to do our own thing, but we kind of got this idea from Andy Stanley and kind of something he did back in the past. But here's the thing. Most of our resolutions that we make, think about it, most of the ones we shared, probably most of the ones you shared with the people next to you, they're not like world-changing resolutions, are there? They're not resolutions that are going to make a big difference. Like I said, for like 8 straight years, maybe longer than that, my resolutions have been a lot about getting to the gym and losing weight. And some of those years, I may have accomplished them. A lot of those years, I didn't. But you know what? Even though I have accomplished them, guess what? My resolution continues to be to get back. It didn't last. Maybe this whole book thing. Listen, I think it's a good idea for me to read 24 books. I think it'll help me just in leadership and planning and stuff like that. But I don't know that that's something that's really going to change the world and make a big difference. Most of our resolutions that we make are self-improvement things, aren't they? They're self-improvement things. Well, during this series, we want to talk about resolving to do things that will make an impact on the world around us. Listen, all those things are good. Getting to the gym, reading books, all that stuff, it's good stuff. But I believe that God has called us to do something bigger than just self-improvement. I believe that God wants us to make a difference in the lives of other people and to make a difference in our community. This is something I love about the church today is in the past, and I'm not trying to be critical, but in the past, I think that church was kind of a hideaway or, we do our thing and we're blocked off. But now, more than ever, the church is about impacting and making a difference in the world around us. So I want each one of you over the next 6 weeks to be thinking about how you can make an impact on the people and the community around you. Can you do that for me? Can you think through this? Today we're really just going to kind of dip our feet in the water, but over the next 5 weeks we're going to talk about really how that works out. We're going to be looking at the story of Nehemiah. How many of you have read the story of Nehemiah before? All right, some of you haven't. That's cool. We're going to learn more about the story of Nehemiah, which is a story from the Bible, from the earlier scriptures, the Old Testament. And so we're going to look through that. But I'm going to start again. So we started with talking about our resolutions. Now I want to play a game with you. I want you, I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes. And I want to see if you guys can guess who these quotes come from. They're all from the same person. I want to see how long it takes you to figure out who these quotes are from. Are you ready? Everyone ready? The person that gets this right will probably get a high five from someone close to them. That's the prize. Don't miss it. You got it? Here we go. Quote number 1. It is not how much we do, but how much love we put in the doing. It is not how much we give, but how much love we put in the giving. Anyone got it already? Look at this. First quote, we got it. It's Mother Teresa, yes. Very good. Let me read these quotes now that you ruined the rest of the game. Thanks a lot, Phil. I can't fill all this time. No, I'm just kidding. It is not how much we do, but how much love we put in the doing. It is not how much we give, but how much love we put in the giving. Here's another one. Love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. Another one. Not all of us can do great things, but we all can do small things with great love. These are good quotes, aren't they? Are you writing these down? These will come in handy to you. The hunger for love is much more difficult to remove than the hunger for bread. And then the last one I wrote down is this, and there are hundreds of these online, but the last one I wrote down is this: spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. Those are some good quotes, right? Mother Teresa. Very good. So I just want to talk a little bit about the story of Mother Teresa with you, and I just think it's fascinating. So, just like I said, how many of my quotes do you think you can find on the internet? No, I don't have many good things to say. Not many. Thanks to those of you on Facebook that post them every once in a while. That's nice of you, Sarah. I appreciate it. No, I mean, I think it's incredible that Mother Teresa has hundreds of quotes. I mean, I actually looked up the most influential people in our world, and she is in the top 100 most influential people to ever live, according to whatever website. And it's on the internet, so it's true. So there we go. Here's her story. She was born in 1910 in, forgive me for getting this wrong, but Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. It's Skopje. Anyone know that better than I do? Okay, good. The capital of Macedonia. At age 18, she joined a group of nuns. She felt led to join a group of nuns, so she did when she was 18. My only connection to the nuns is that I once got a $500 speeding ticket in the parking lot of the Sisters of Mercy convent by my house. That's all I know about nuns. Yeah, $500. It was not merciful. And so at 18, she joined a group of nuns. On arrival in India, she began working as a teacher. However, the widespread poverty of Calcutta made a deep impression on her, and this led her to start a new order called Missionaries of Charity. She experienced two particularly traumatic periods in Calcutta. The first was the Bengal famine of 1943. That's not the team that doesn't ever make it past the first round of the playoffs. That was a food famine, the Bengal famine of 1943. And the second was the Hindu-Muslim violence in 1946. In 1948, so we're talking about at the age of 38 years old, she left the convent to work full-time and live full-time among the poorest people of Calcutta. So here we have Mother Teresa. We have this girl that grew up wanting to be a nun, and she becomes a nun at the age of 18, and she's teaching, and she's living the life she wanted to live. But at the age of 38, and she was doing good things before, but at the age of 38, she was so impressed by the brokenness and the pain and the poverty that she saw around her that she decided to leave the life that she had and live in the middle of the poorest people of Calcutta. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? So this is the good news. Changing the world isn't just for young people. I don't know if you classify 38 as young, but she was 38 years old, already had kind of what she wanted to do in life, and all of a sudden God redirected her heart, and she became one of the most influential people to ever walk the face of the earth. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? So in 1948, she left the convent to live full-time among the poorest of Calcutta. In 1952, she opened her first home for the dying. She opened a home that was specifically existed to allow people to come there to die so that she could be with them. And the whole idea, which allowed people to die with dignity. So people that were going to die, it broke her heart to see people that were dying with no dignity, with nobody around them. So she opened a home where they could come and she could be with them. She often spent time with the people that came to that home. Her work spread around the world. By 2013, there were 700 missions operating in 130 countries. These included orphanages, hospices for people with terminal illnesses. And so we have little old Mother Teresa, who at the age of 18 became a nun like she wanted to, and all of a sudden at the age 38, God broke her heart by seeing what was happening around her, by seeing the poverty, and things changed. And by 2013, we see that her work has spread to 700 missions over 130 countries. In 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Any of you have one of those in your pocket? No, you don't, do you? She did pretty well. In 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for work undertaken in the struggle to overcome poverty and distress. Here's the thing. She didn't attend the ceremonial banquet that was held for it. Instead, she said, "Can you please give the $192,000 fund or prize, can you give that to the poor?" Her whole life was changed when her heart broke for the people that were living in poverty around her. And not only was her life changed, not only was her heart broken, but the lives of many people to this day have been changed by what God did in Mother Teresa's heart. Isn't that incredible? We talk about resolutions, and listen, it'd be great if I could get down under 200 pounds. That'd be fun. Man, what Mother Teresa did responding to the broken heart that she had for others, the way that God used her. We're not talking about the elite. We're not talking about somebody who was rich and had a bunch of influence. We're talking about somebody who joined a convent at the age of 18. But God used her in incredible ways and is still using what God did in her to this day to change lives. Isn't that incredible? How many of you would love to have an impact on the world around you? Okay, some of you are just mean. I mean, that's not cool. Like, you should want to have an impact, right? We all want to have an impact. Selfish thing. This is a good thing. We all would love at some point for somebody to come back and say, "Man, you made a difference in my life." Not because we need to be important, not because making a difference. We should want more than anything to be a part of God's transformation of the world around us. We should want to be a part of making a difference. And so what we see with Mother Teresa is somebody who was living the life that she wanted to live, and all of a sudden, just her heart was too broken, and she couldn't do it anymore. And so she responded, and amazing things happened. Well, we're going to talk about Nehemiah in just a second, but this is a quote. It actually comes, I don't know if Andy Stanley actually wrote this quote or if he got it from somewhere else, but this is a line that he used that I think is really good. It says this: "If you really want to become a better person, do something that makes the world a better place." If you really want to become a better person, do something that makes the world a better place. Listen, I don't want to speak negatively about your resolutions. I don't want to say that those aren't important. But if that's all we ever do, if all we ever do is work to make ourselves and our lives better, it's worthless. It amounts to nothing. If you really want to become a better person, do something that makes the world a better place. So think about this. Who do you really look up to in your life? Who is it that changed your life? I want you to think about that for a second. I really want you to take a second. Who changed your life? Who is it that you really look up to? I'll give you one example for me, and I've probably talked about this before, but when I was trying to choose what college I was going to go to, I knew I was going to go to one of the Nazarene schools, which is the school's affiliation here in Ohio, and then Trevecca. At the time I was living in Nashville, which is where Trevecca was. And I went up to Mount Vernon, I visited, and I love basketball. And listen, I wasn't going to be real good at Mount Vernon. I probably would have sat the bench, but I could have gone to Mount Vernon and played basketball, and that would have been really cool. Olivet, I actually had an offer to go to Olivet and to play tennis for Olivet, which would have been really awesome. I love tennis. But I went to Trevecca on a visit, and Tim Green, who was the dean of religion, sat down in his office with me. And you know what he did? He said, "Let's pray. Let's pray about what God wants you to do." And not only that, he wasn't trying to convince me to come to his school. That's not what this was about. Tim Green cared about me, and he invested in me, and he prayed for me that day, and that prayer made a huge difference. You guys know I love sports. I love basketball. I love tennis. You know what really changed me? Knowing that the person that was in charge of my education really cared about who I was and what God was going to do in my life. That's what changed it. I've always looked up to Tim Green. He's one of the most fantastic speakers I've ever heard. He's incredible. But he cared. I've had professors, I've heard of preachers that could preach your socks off. But Tim Green cared about who I was and what I did. That made a difference. Who is it for you? Who do you really look up to? Go ahead. Linda? Yeah, me too. Linda's awesome. I'm guessing the people that you look up to, it's probably not because they hit their resolutions last year and lost the weight that they needed to lose. It's probably not because they're super skinny. It's probably not because they're really rich or they handle their money well. It's probably not even because they're super powerful people. I'm guessing that the people you think of when I ask you who has made a difference and changed your life, I'm guessing it's because of them investing not in themselves, but in you. Am I right? Give me a nod so I know that I'm right. If not, I'm going to have to change the rest of the sermon. It's going to be messy. Well, let's look at Nehemiah. This is Nehemiah chapter 1. And over this month, we're going to be looking at the story of Nehemiah. And so Nehemiah chapter 1, I've got these words on the screen. We're just going to look at the first 4 verses. It's pretty simple. And so let me give you an overview of the story of Nehemiah. And then I want you to know that this will kind of play itself out through the next 6 weeks. I'm not going to give you all of it today. But Nehemiah is known for one thing. Nehemiah is known for rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem. And so we're going to look through that for the next 6 weeks. I want you to remember that. So here we go. Nehemiah chapter 1. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hananiah, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men. And I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile and all about Jerusalem. So let me give you some background before we move on. Nehemiah was an Israelite, but he was working not with Judah or not in Jerusalem, but he was actually working for King Artaxerxes in Persia. And so it says that they came to visit them, and he questioned his brothers about what was happening with his people who had survived the exile. So the people of Israel were living together, and all of a sudden there was a split, and there was an exile, and they were cast off, and they weren't able to be where they were supposed to be, and everything was in ruins. And so Nehemiah asks his brothers, what's going on with all those people that are living in exile? What's going on with those people that survived that? In verse 3, they said to me, those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. This is Nehemiah talking. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. So let's just look at that for just a second. Nehemiah was working as the cupbearer to the king. In fact, if you look at chapter 1, I didn't put it up there, but if you look at chapter 1 of the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament of Scriptures, the last line says, I was cupbearer to the king. He was cupbearer to King Artaxerxes of Persia. So he was an Israelite, but he was no longer with his people. However, he was living in Persia, and he was a cupbearer to the king. How many of you have ever heard of King Artaxerxes? Yeah, pretty big deal. Pretty big historical figure. And Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. We don't have cupbearers anymore, I don't think. And so what does that mean? He was one of the most trusted advisors of the king. When people would bring food or drink to the king, and King Artaxerxes was a big guy, he was important, he ruled a lot, and so when people would bring stuff to him, Nehemiah was the one that made sure it was okay. Nehemiah was the one that would the king and say, this is safe for you. And so he was the cupbearer. He was like one of the most trusted people in the kingdom. That's a big position, isn't it? And we're talking about Persia, one of the biggest empires that's existed. And so we have Nehemiah, who was an Israelite, and we have the Israelites who are in exile. They're all over the place, but Nehemiah is not doing so poorly. He's in a high position of leadership to one of the most powerful men in the world. he's got it pretty good. He's cupbearer to the king. His brothers come and visit, and he says, hey, what's going on with our people? What's going on with the people that survived the exile? And the story that he heard wasn't a good one. The brothers said, those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. Can any of you think of why that would be a big deal? The wall being broken down and the gates burned with fire. Any of you think of why that would be a big deal? I mean, today it probably wouldn't be, right? You lose a wall, that's fine. Big deal, it's a wall. And that day, if you didn't have strong walls, if you didn't have gates, you were in trouble, because anyone that wanted to come take from you, anyone that wanted to raid you, you had no defense. Your walls, your gates were the best defense you had. And so what his brothers tell him is this, that the people that survived the exile are living around Jerusalem, but they have no defense. They're in big trouble. They're sitting ducks for the enemies that want to come take whatever they want. And so Nehemiah, when he hears this, it says, I sat down and wept. I just want to venture to say that I think most of us probably are closer to Nehemiah in this story than we are to the Israelites that are living in Jerusalem with the walls broken down. I mean, just by virtue of the fact that you're living in or around Westchester, Ohio, just by virtue of the fact that you probably drove here in a car, you probably have somewhere to sleep tonight, you probably have food on the table, you guys may not think that you're rich, you may not think that your life is super secure, but the truth of the matter is, in this story, we probably find ourselves closer to Nehemiah than we do the people that are living in big, big trouble. Maybe we aren't rich in society's eyes, but we are rich. Have you ever been to a third world country? Have you ever been to a place where they don't have what we have, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from? We are rich. And so when we think about Nehemiah, when we think about his position, I think it's incredible that a guy that was in that great of a position, when he heard about the pain and the suffering that others were going through, what did he do? He sat down and he wept. Here's one of the things that I think is hard about us. I'll go ahead and I'll say us Americans. We're pretty good at ignoring what's going on in the world around us. It's pretty easy to bury your head and just live the good life and live in your riches and not really know what's going on around you. I work in a really nice office right over here. I've got a nice heater, so my office gets kind of cold in the winter, right? Because the heat doesn't really heat that back office. And man, I've got it so rough because it's a little cold in my office. But I have this nice little space heater, so I just plug it in and boom, I've got a nice warm office. But do you realize that there are people in Westchester that are living in absolute poverty? One of the cool things that I've had the opportunity to do was in the years past and even this year, like I have the opportunity to help people when they come in the church in need. And I can tell you that I've seen things that I didn't think existed in Westchester. I've seen things that I didn't think existed in Ohio. I've seen poverty that I didn't think existed. It's easy for us in our comfortable, nice place. It would have been easy for Nehemiah in his high position in Persia. Everything was going good, to just bury his head and not worry about what was going on around him. And that's easy for us to do. But Nehemiah asked some important questions. He saw past his own position. And he asked about others. So let me ask you a question. Just for starters, how often do you look past the comfort in your own life? How often do you look past your position to see what's going on around you? How often have you had the opportunity to see people that are living not in the same realm as you? Because we pretty much hang out with people that are like us, people in the same positions. We pretty much hang around the same places. How many times or how often do you look elsewhere, look past your position of richness and comfort to see brokenness and pain? I want you to know this is a really dangerous question to ask. It's really dangerous to look past your comfort, because when you look past it, man, your heart is going to break. When I went to Uganda in college, I was a college kid that grew up in Ohio and Texas and Nashville, and I had everything I ever wanted, and my parents, got me a car when I went off to college, and everything was good. And I went to Uganda, and I saw little kids that didn't have parents. I saw little kids that were living in orphanages. I saw little kids that had nothing, that were playing with old tires. That was their toys. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. If we can see past our own situation, it'll break our heart. Have you taken time to see what's happening past or around you? That's number one. The first thing Nehemiah did is he looked past his position. The second thing, it said, it broke his heart. He sat down and wept. When was the last time that your heart was truly broken for something outside of your own circumstances? Think about that. When was the last time that your heart truly broke for something that happened outside of what affects you? When was the last time? When was the last time you sat down and wept? Obviously, hasn't been that long for me. Hasn't been that long for Ricky and Andrew and all the Titans fans in the room, or the I'm sorry guys, or the Pittsburgh fans. They're struggling too. When was the last time? And I joke, but when was the last time that you really sat down and were brokenhearted over something that was happening in the world around you? I don't know why I do this to myself. You know when the last time that my heart was really, really, really broken was? It was when my buddy Keith was a guy that showed up to our church, and he needed help. And over the course of about 4 years, I developed a relationship with Keith on and off where he drove me insane. I went to places I didn't want to go to. I was put in some uncomfortable positions. There were days that I wanted to shake Keith. But man, Keith was living in a place of pain and brokenness that I couldn't understand. And my heart broke when he OD'd on heroin. A guy that I invested a lot of time in. And here's the thing. There's people like Keith all around us. There's probably people like Keith in your own family that are just hurting and broken. And you have a choice. You can sit around and worry about reading more books, and that's fine. You could sit around and worry about making yourself a better person, and that's okay too. But we cannot be followers of Christ and ignore the people around us that are hurting. We cannot be followers of Christ and ignore the brokenness and the pain in the world around us. We saw that video. There's stuff going on. There's stuff going on right here in Westchester. We can't ignore it. We serve a God that breaks our hearts. And so I want to ask you, when was the last time that your heart was truly broken for something outside of your own circumstances? As we launch into 2018, I want to challenge you today to make this a year of action. So each one of you are here tonight. Each one of you represent a set of circumstances and skills. Each one of you comes here with something to give. I want to challenge you to make 2018 a year of action, not just on your resolutions that you've made, not just to lose weight, not just to read more, not just to be a better person in what you can do. I want to challenge you to make this a year of action where we make a difference in the lives of the people around us, where we see the people around us that are hurting and lost and broken, and we take action. Here's some really cool things that have happened from people having a broken heart and taking action. We have a group of people that every time someone passes away in our church, they make a really nice dinner for the family. Do you guys understand how cool that is? that people would take their time every time somebody passes away. They take their time and they take their energy to provide food so that the people that are there can have a nice meal to share together. That's incredible. We had the Christmas Eve thing where God broke Linda's heart and she had to do something about it. And from that, you've seen what happens Christmas Eve. We had tons of families that came here to have a Christmas. God used a broken heart to minister. We have Family Promise that was here this week. We have a group of people that their hearts are broken for homelessness and for struggle. And they give their time and their effort. We have God's Threads. That room right there is full of clothes because we have people in our congregation whose hearts are broken for people that live in this community that don't have the clothes that we have. We have Meet the Need. That's all about giving food to people in this community that don't know where their next meal is coming from. When we look past our own situations, God works. When our hearts break, God works. So number one, I want you to look past yourself. It's a dangerous thing, but I want you to look past yourself in 2018. Number two, I want you to let your heart break. I don't want you to shield yourself. Because here's the thing, every time someone walks in the door that needs help, I know what's going to happen. I know that I'm committing to something that I have no control over, and I know that there's a good chance that this might cost me a lot. And I can say, no thanks, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to hide behind my comfortable position, or I can see what's going on and allow my heart to break and allow myself to see where other people are at. And that almost always leads me to pay a price. And man, it's a price that I will pay time and time again. So number one, look past yourself. Number two, let your heart break. It's okay. God does amazing things when our hearts break. Look at Mother Teresa. Number three, act. 2018 is going to be a year of action for us. I love Access 502 because we're all about acting out. We're all about acting in service to love our community. That's the heart behind this service, is that we would make an impact on our community. So 2018, for all of you that are here, is going to be a year of action. Look past yourself, let your heart break, and act. This year, I want you to make resolutions that last. So this week, I want you to, I've been given a lot of homework lately, but this week I want you to think about, what is it that's going on around you? What is it that's going on outside of your circumstances that would break your heart? What is it that God might be wanting to break your heart over? I want you to think about that for the next week. And in the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at Nehemiah's story. We're going to look at a guy who looked past his situation, let his heart be broken, and we're going to look at how God used that to do some incredible things, and hopefully we'll get a blueprint for how we are going to follow that leading of God to make an impact on the world around us. So that's what I want you to do this week. Think about what's going on around us. Look past where you are and allow your heart to be broken. Father, I thank you for the opportunity to be together. I thank you for heat. I thank you for comfort. I thank you for our homes and our cars and all the great things that we have. I thank you for your love, that we can sit here and know that we're loved by the Creator God. But Father, I pray that you will help us to look past our situations. I pray that this year would be a year not of resolutions that we'll just have to do again next year. I pray, Lord, that this year would be a year that you break our hearts and that you use us to do really awesome things for your kingdom. Maybe we won't end up being top 100 most influential people in the world, but maybe we'll give hope and peace to somebody who needs it. Maybe you'll make an incredible change in our community or in somebody's life that's going to last forever. So Father, be with us, challenge us, help us to see what you're doing in the world around us, and help us to act in 2018. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
Would you stand and sing with us?
my heart through what breaks yours. Everything I am for your kingdom's cause. As I walk from earth is you, eternity. I see the King of Glory coming on the clouds with fire. The whole earth shakes. The whole earth shakes. I see His love and mercy washing over all our sin. People sing, people sing. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. I see a generation rising up to take their place with selfless faith, selfless faith. I see a new revival stirring as we pray and sing. We're on our knees. We're on our knees. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the
Hear my heart.
Hear my heart and make it clean. Open up my eyes to the things I see. Show me how to love like you have loved me. Break my heart for what breaks yours. Everything I am for your kingdom's cause. As I walk from earth into eternity.
you go. On New Year's Eve, we had a cool event. It was the New Year's Eve Palooza, and we met in Hawks Hall, and we had some cool things. One of the things I thought was really, really awesome was we had a timeline of 2017, and we had people go up and put things on that timeline that had happened in their lives and things that God had done in their lives. And so let's just start here tonight with a goal. And that's that at the end of 2018, we can look back, and if we do a timeline thing, we will see where God has made a difference around us through us. And so that starts tonight by us praying, God, break our heart for something. God, show me what you want me to do. And at the end of 2018, I'm going to set a goal right now that when we do that, if we have that timeline, we're going to see some awesome ways that God has used each one of you to do incredible things this year. Are you with me? All right, this week, go and pray and open your eyes to the world around you and let God break your heart. Have a great night.